Welcome to Behind the Walking Foot. We're going to talk about the 3 F's today. Frame, foam, and fabric. These 3 items determine what you're going to pay for a piece of furniture. But we're going to talk about frames today. So stay tuned to the end. I'm going to give you some tips on what to look for when buying furniture to determine if it's got a good frame or not. So let's begin. Assimilation. Let me preface this conversation with some information. There's promotional furniture, there's mid-range furniture, and then there's high-end furniture. And promotional furniture is usually made very cheap and very quickly, and this way it can be put on sale. Mid-range furniture is probably the average furniture most of us buy. And then there's the high-end furniture that gets into the real expensive fabrics and looks and things like that. And keep in mind that we're talking about sofas today and chairs, not motion furniture. Motion furniture is a whole nother ball game, and we'll talk more about that later. Some of the woods that you will use in building furniture is maple, oak, poplar, plywoods, hardwood plywoods, and OSB. OSB is oriented strand wood, and it's a very stable wood. And plywood is wood that has been glued together in plies, and the plies go in different directions, different grain directions, which makes it a very stable wood. Most wood that's used in furniture has to be dried to a moisture content of 8 to 6%. And this makes it more stable to use in furniture frames. So we're going to talk about milling methods, which means how the wood is cut and how it's processed to be used in your frame. There's some old school milling methods that are still being used today, and they are the old way of constructing things, and I'm going to say probably better way of constructing things. In today's world, there's a lot of machinery that goes into doing that. There's a lot of different machines you will use, from mortise and tenon machines and other machines that will mill this into wood, so it's a very lengthy process. Today, some of the modern methods we will use would be CNC machines, computer numerical control machines, where the pattern is programmed into the machine and then it's cut on the wood. Now, this eliminates a lot of processes. When I first started making frames, we would make a pattern, then we would take the pattern, lay it on the lumber, draw it out, take it over to the machine, whether it be a bandsaw or whatever, or a regular saw or a miter saw or whatever. We would take it to the machine, proceed to cut it out, and then we would process it that way. With a CNC machine, and I started programming these machines in the late 90s to early 2000s, I started programming these machines, and it just eliminates a lot of the work. Now, the thing is, you have to use plywood to do this, or a sheet wood, such as OSB or hardwood plywood. But when you get into doing this, you can be creative with your joints, and you can make some joinery that will enable you to build a very strong frame. You can do mortise and tenon joints without processing it through multiple machines. You can do puzzle joints, which I'll show you some examples of that. And it's a very good way to build a quality frame. So talking a little bit about construction, we've already talked a little bit about mortise and tenon joints and things like that. Here's some examples of what that looks like. Putting these joints together is all well and good, but the best way to secure these joints is with glues and staples and screws. These are the main components that are used in it. Now, when I first started in designing frames, it was in the mid-'80s, I worked with a German cabinet maker who taught me most of what, if not everything, I guess I know about frames. He apprenticed in Germany. He worked for years as an apprentice, and then he worked his way up to a master craftsman. He was in his phase of retiring when I met him, which is one of the reasons I kind of took over his job. But he spent a lot of time with me, training me, and he taught me some of the old ways of drafting out the frame, determining all your joints, determining how it was going to be, all on paper. And then we would transfer that to patterns and proceed from there to mill out the furniture. In doing that, we always use glue and clamps. Now, the old method of building furniture was it used to be glued and clamped and allowed to dry overnight so that the glue would set up. They would use clamps similar to this old soldier here. This is an old school furniture clamp. This clamp is probably at least 90 years old, 80 or 90 years old. It was one my dad had, and they would adjust these things with these notches, ratchet it up, and then clamp it down. And they would allow the frame to dry overnight, which made a very stable frame. Nowadays, you know, everybody's in a hurry, and furniture's no different. To be cost effective, you have to be able to build the furniture fast. They've developed in recent years fast drying glues that allow you to send the frame straight off the workbench into the upholstery operation. There are some times when they allow only on the staple itself to hold the frame. It's like some of these people that you see here. They're stapling the frame together and slapping it together, relying on the staples to hold it. The problem with this, with no glue and only the staples, that the more this furniture is moved, the more likely it is to squeak or to have problems. And I know you may have experienced this where you have a piece of furniture in your home and it starts moving, it starts squeaking, and that's because it wasn't constructed right to begin with. So a lot of times in building the furniture, like I say, they will use staples. And staples is standard practice today. Everybody uses them. This is an example of a frame staple. This is an 1.5 inch staple. The reason for 1.5 inches is that most upholstery constructed frames will be at least 7/8 inch wood, which we call 4/4 wood. This will staple through 2 pieces of wood. Now this is a frame staple gun. Now this gun is very powerful and it's very dangerous, but it's designed to hold 2 pieces of wood together. So as I shoot this thing, you can see the tongue of this thing coming out. Now that tongue is going to go into the wood, and it's pushing the staple in as deep as it can. So pushing that staple in also causes damage to the wood fibers. So if a staple gun is the only thing used and it's overused, then it can cause more harm than good. Here's an example of the staple going into the wood. You can see how it came out, and it also indented that wood. So a lot of times air tools are great, but a lot of times they're overused. So, and it's like in staple guns in the factory, a lot of times people just like to hear them shoot. And so these guns are designed for one purpose, and that's to hold 2 pieces of wood together. And hopefully there's some glue in between that wood and it will make a good joint. So these are things that I want you to look for when you're buying furniture, because you might buy something that's already been compromised. And especially if you're wanting this furniture to last you, I want you to buy the best furniture you can or you can afford. That's the whole reason that I'm doing this channel. I'm passing on knowledge that I have learned over the last 50 years. And this is knowledge coming from the fact that I have actually done these jobs. I have milled out frames, I have built frames, I have sprung frames, I cut, I sew, I make patterns, I've programmed all types of machines for building furniture, I've designed frames, and I've done it all. And so I'm trying to pass this knowledge on to you to help you make better decisions when you're buying furniture. So some of the tips I want to give you when you go to buy furniture. So you're in the furniture store and you're all excited, you want to buy this furniture, and you got a salesman, and he's wanting to sell you furniture too, because he's probably going to make a commission off of this. So he's wanting to sell you this furniture too, and he wants to move you through as fast as possible. And I get that, I understand that, but you take your time. This is a big purchase. And so you want to buy something that you can live with. And hopefully you'll buy something that you can reupholster, because reupholstering something is the biggest recycling thing you can do. Just think of all the furniture that goes into landfills. It'd be nice to have a piece of furniture that's going to last you. So, tips. First off, sit in that furniture like your kids would sit in it. Flop down in it, wallow around in it, move around in it. If you hear any squeaking or you feel that frame move, then it may have problems. And this goes for, let's say you do all this in the store and everything's fine. This goes for when you get it home before that delivery man leaves. You open up that piece of furniture and you test it out. The other thing is, if you're looking at a sofa, go to one end of that sofa, get on the corner, and if you can, don't hurt yourself, but go to the corner and pick up that corner, just the corner. Get it high enough just to see if it will twist, if the frame will twist. I call it racking. If it does any of that, it may be compromised, and this may not be furniture you want to live with. So that's some of the things you need to look for. I kind of ramble through this, I guess, but if you have any questions, feel free to comment below. And if you could be so kind as to like and maybe subscribe to the channel, I'll have more videos like this coming out later on. Like I say, I'm just an old man trying to pass on some knowledge that I hope will help you out. And thanks for watching.